So welcome to the podcast, Jason. It's awesome to have you on. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
So for those who haven't come across yourself and across Prescott and everything you're doing, give us a bit of an insight into your own journey into sport and physical activity as a youngster and as a teenager. What did that look like for you in terms of sport and activity?
Yeah, starting when I was really, really young, I've always been into sports. I was the type of kid when I was sitting in class, I couldn't wait to get out to recess to play football, play basketball with my friends, play pickup games. That was in the middle of school, after school, and the weekends. Just going to neighbors' houses, knocking on the door, and saying, "Hey, let's get a football game going," stuff like that. I didn't get into organized sport until I was about seventh grade, around 12 years old. I started playing football, tackle football, and organized basketball. I didn't have a ton of success as an athlete, but I loved it. I loved being part of a team, pushing myself and seeing myself get better. Really, a lot of the success started when I got into high school. I hit a big growth spurt. I went from 5'6" to about 6'1", gained about 50 pounds in a year time. Then I progressed big time, really in football more than anything. I loved basketball. I had a passion for it, but I wasn't great at it. I was limited with size and stuff like that. But yeah, I had a good, successful career, really in both sports in high school. Then I went to college. I went to Menlo College. I got recruited out there. It's in the Bay Area. Played there for a year. It's a private school. It was pretty expensive, and it's kind of put a little hardships on my family. My mom had to pick up a second job, stuff like that. So I moved back and went to the Modesto Junior College, which was by my hometown. Played out there. I had a fantastic time, got a lot better, got coached up really well, earned a scholarship to the University of Mary in North Dakota, and I finished my playing career out there.
Awesome. So obviously you then started to head down to, I guess, more the coaching and PE teaching route. What did that look like for you? Where was your first kind of involvement in the coaching side of things and teaching side of things?
So actually coaching my last year at the University of Mary, as I was finishing up my physical education degree, I actually was a grad assistant. So I coached the young outside linebackers. So it was a great learning experience. I learned a lot. A lot of the practices that I learned from my coaches, I was able to take directly with them. Then after that year, I came back. I actually was a personal trainer for 6 months when I moved back. Then one of my good friends, Timmy Garcia, who was actually our quarterback at the University of Mary, he got a head coaching job at Central Valley High School back here in California. And he offered me the defensive coordinator job. So I followed him there. When I started there, I was actually a long-term sub, so I taught in the district. And while I was coaching, and then after a few years, I actually got a teaching job, a few teaching jobs in the area. In 2008, we had the recession here in the United States, so I actually ended up losing my job. Then I ended up taking a long-term sub job at Pittman High School. And then I started coaching there, and I was just the assistant linebacker coach. Then I ended up becoming the defensive coordinator for a junior varsity. That was a fantastic experience, just an unbelievable coaching staff. And I really learned a lot from atmosphere and culture. It was just team first. It was a really strong brotherhood where, we all loved each other. We loved the coaches loved each other. Our student athletes loved each other. We'd all, sometimes just always have team dinners, but even after the season, trying to meet up with players and coaches and their families and stuff like that. So built this strong knit bond, and it was something I always wanted to be a part of, is to have something like that. Then after 2 years there, I went to Cupertino. I taught PE. I got a full-time job. Then luckily after a year, the Prescott job opened up, and that's been an amazing opportunity. But even when I came back to Prescott, I coached at Pittman for 5 years, and really the marriage of the two places was just fantastic because Prescott's one of the best physical education programs in the country, if not the best. Then being a part of just a strong and awesome football program like Pittman, what was really special. But after a few years, or about 3 years ago, I quit coaching football at Pittman. I just focused my time at Prescott. And I also I've been coaching basketball and track my whole time at Prescott.
So a lot of, I guess, coaching roles alongside your teaching, both when you're a substitute teacher and full-time coach and vice versa, flipping between the two. So interesting kind of interweaving of the two different sides of the coin there. It's interesting. So in that aspect, looking back on coaching and teaching, what do you think is the real thing that drives you to want to get people involved, whether it's, coaching football or basketball or the other sports or PE? What is it that drives you to kind of get up in the morning and go and do what you do?
For me, I kind of grew up like troubled youth a little bit. So, and then sports and exercise has always been like a release for me, kind of like escape from reality. So a big part is really just trying to help kids and even people that aren't physically active and don't feel that, oh, I don't want to be physically active or I'm not good at anything. It's like, hey, just get out there and try and get better. I would say early in my career, my big thing is like trying to just create lifelong participants and people being physically active and finding that one passion. For me, it was football and basketball. Someone else might be running, swimming, whatever. And even at Prescott and earlier in my career too, we try to offer as many possibilities as possible for someone to find something that they love and something they can possibly do the rest of their life. Now, through my time at Pittman and Prescott, it's building more of the secondary aspects to that. So not just being a lifelong participant in sports or physical activity, but really having that growth mindset, constantly trying to get better. It doesn't matter how rich, poor, whatever, you're going to run through challenges in life. So, create people that can go, when they run into a challenge, they want to take that on and get better from it. But also just like, take others with you along for the ride. So, and appreciate the people that help you get through those challenges and, help others around you, try to give back, build a stronger community. If that's just a close knit of friends or if you're helping locally in your community, and just try to take pride in everything you do. And if you do that, you're overall going to make the world a better place, because if you're constantly thinking of others and you know how to get through challenges, you can help people get through challenges. I think we'd have a much stronger world than we do right now.
Definitely. No, that's great. It's really good. It's interesting. Whenever I speak to guests, there's usually looking back, especially if their outlook is much like yours about, helping people with growth mindset and embracing challenges. There's usually an influential coach or teacher that they had that stands out as being someone who kind of helped direct them on the right path. Is there anyone that stands out for you, like looking back, that teacher made a real difference to me, or that coach made a real difference?
Yeah, I have quite a few. So this is actually my best friend's dad, Dennis Bettencourt. And really for him, they had a nuclear family at home. I didn't necessarily have that. So just seeing like how him and his wife communicated and watching Dennis, he had a big passion for coaching and teaching, but he was also able to coach his kids. He was able to go to his kids' sporting events or whatever their special interests were, go on family trips. He would take me sometimes on those as well. But just seeing like their family dynamic and the way he lives his life, and he's retired now, and he lives a nice life, and I don't think he'd regret anything. And just seeing that when I was really, really young, it was like, man, that's the type of life I want to have when I grow up. But he was also a really good coach. Things I learned from him, like philosophy in terms of coaching, is like just get your best players the ball, or he was a football coach, so just trying to get your best athletes in positions where they can't succeed, even if it's something that's not like a typical position or whatever for them, but able to think outside the box and put them in situations to be successful. Also, my high school basketball coach, Tony Tomas, He was young when he started coaching us. He was actually a student coach. Um, and what I took from him, he was really a very personable person. So he kind of knew how to read a room too. So, if we were slacking off or not working hard, he knew when to get on us, but he also knew when, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't yell at this kid. Let me talk to this kid and maybe help them out and stuff of that nature. And it built a real strong bond within our team, but also to like, and his principles I use today when I coach basketball is really, really simple. We'd run one man offense, one zone offense, one zone defense. We might practice a little bit of man-to-man defense and have a press out of our zone defense, but it was just to keep things really, really simple without making things super complicated. I feel sometimes with coaches, they'll make things super complicated and it's hard to read and react and play freely without that. My time at Pittman, our coaches there were just phenomenal. All family men, all of them had nuclear families, and just really hard workers. And again, just building that strong bond with the team and creating that culture and atmosphere. It was just all about family. Usually when we broke apart, our break was family. That started with Brandon Harris. He left and went back to Idaho after a few years. And that was carried over by Tom Tyler, who's really been a huge father figure for me. He carried that going and probably made that a little bit stronger. Then also a strength coach when I was there is Chris Wolfley. I learned a lot from him, and especially as I got into track and field. I never coached track or did track before. So he's like a sprinter's coach. So he helped me a lot in terms of just like speed and dynamics and helping build a program and helping our students taking that over to Prescott to help us with our track and field team, but also too learning a lot about strength and endurance. Because that one thing at Pittman was like in the fourth quarter of football games, other teams would be wearing out and we would be just as strong, just as fast as we were at the beginning of the game. I always thought that was really impressive and how he ran the program that way. And last but not least, Chris Lindbergh, she was at Prescott my first 5 years. She's just what an unbelievable woman. Just one of the hardest workers, probably the best teacher I've ever seen in my life. I can talk about her for an hour, but big thing I took from her is she brought in that whole family atmosphere and culture to Prescott, all for one, one for all. And I mean, that showed an example of that is like, we'd run a long distance run, maybe we're running up to a 3 mile. And our top kids will get done and they'll be dead tired. They're pushing, they're trying to get their next color trunks or points or whatever. They might catch their breath for a few minutes, get a sip of water, and those kids will jump right back on the track and they're helping the rest of their teammates or classmates be successful and trying to help them finish their 3 mile because they know they're struggling. So sometimes those kids would run, an extra 2-3 miles after their 3 mile to just help whoever else, it was like a no one left behind mentality. So just really those influences and being around those people have really shaped me in my career.
So that leads nicely to kind of digging a bit more into your role at Prescott. So give us a bit of an idea in terms of what's your role and responsibilities, what are some of the age groups you're working with, and what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
so roles. So at Prescott, it's awesome. Again, we work as a team. So there's 4 of us. In terms of like not coaching or teaching, so behind the scenes, I'm in charge of like our uniforms. So ordering those and making sure we always have enough, the right sizes for everybody. Also run fundraisers. So we usually have a few fundraisers. Our program it costs quite a bit of money to run. So we have to make sure we're bringing money in as well. I said before, I coach basketball and track, but then teaching. So glad you brought like day to day. What I love a lot about Prescott is like every day is different in a sense. Now, the one thing that is the same is the way we come out and do our warm-ups. So, students when they come in, when the tardy bell hits, they have 5 minutes to get dressed. So they got to hustle, get dressed, and they jog out to the numbers or their area for warm-ups. And some students get done and get dressed in 2 minutes. Some students are getting dressed in like 7 minutes. So we can't be everywhere at once. So usually us coaches, we're in the locker room for 5 minutes, try to push those last kids out. But as we walk out, we have PE aides, who are actually students. They're always like 8th graders that were awesome as 7th graders, kids that we trust. So sometimes we'll have like aides in the locker room as we leave, but we'll also have aides out there by our classes, watching the classes while warm-ups are going. I know like last year, our superintendent, or she's new, she just started, but she came out and she was out there before I was, and she was like so impressed because when she came out, and this is a typical day, it was, our kids are warming up, everything's going. There's like no teachers out there, but everything's going just smoothly, and it's just like very impressive. Everyone's sounding off and doing the warm-up stuff like that. She's like, whoa, is this typical day? I was like, actually, this is like probably one of our worst classes, but yeah, this is normal. But we build that real strong culture early in the year. It's really nice because sometimes, and it takes a lot of work early in the year, but like second half of the year, I feel like when I walk out there, like, I'm just like, I don't even need to be there. I think the class can run by itself. But so they'll do warm-ups. So typically they'll do those for, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the day and our activities for the day. But then after that, every day, our main activity is going to be different. So in a typical week, we'll do 4 different exercise days. So for example, say my Mondays, we're on the track. So on my track day, we can run a 400 meter all the way up to 3 mile. And we wouldn't start with a 3 mile early in the year. We work ourselves up to that. Our Tuesdays are our weight room days. So we do have a weight room, which is cool. Wednesdays, so we have 1 day a week where we do not dress out. We have minimum days. So, and we have like meetings and stuff like that. So that kind of threw a wrench in our program. So that's kind of our big information day. And we call that like locker check day. So we usually, all the classes will meet in the gym, and we'll check like all the students' PE items and stuff like that. They have to have their clothes and everything organized perfectly. Like if it's just a mess, they're getting a grade cut for that. So it's got to be organized. They got to have their towel folded a certain way, all types of stuff. It's really cool. It just creates discipline. But that's a big day too, where we check times and points, because we never want to go a long time with a discrepancy there. So for instance, say my class ran the 400 meter on Monday. That day I'll check their time to make sure they have the same time that I have written in their point chart or their running log. If their time's different, even if it's 1 second off, they're getting a grade cut for that. So it's just holding them accountable and teaching them to have good records, teaching them responsibility, discipline, all that good stuff. So it's like, hey, when you get done with a run, first thing when you get in the locker room is to open up your point chart and write your times. And if you got any points, put those in before you go shower and get dressed, all that good stuff. But also to our Wednesdays, that's like our information day. So if we have like a fundraiser going on, we have sporting events, just things of that nature, we can talk about the upcoming events for the next week in terms of PE and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice having that break in between in the week. So say Thursday, that might be my field day. And depending on the time of year, usually early in the year, that's like a testing day. Give them a chance to do like upper body tests or something of that nature. Then Wednesday or Fridays would be my gym day. And again, depending on the year, like early in the year, the gym day would probably be a sports day. So we'd probably do like volleyball, basketball. Then the second half of the year, while on the field, maybe we're doing an outside sport like flag football, soccer, or track and field. Then on the gym day, that'd be like our second test day. So we typically, and every week we have 3 fitness days, then 1 sports day.
So to get that right, so the students are getting 3, potentially 4 bouts of physical activity in a week, spread across different activities, be it on the track, in the weight room, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So we are a fitness-based program. It's kind of the classical model of PE. I know a lot of places, even here in the United States, are sports-driven, and I've been a part of that. And what I find with that is like, you're in basketball, and it's a 6-week course. Well, if I don't like basketball, and gosh, we're in the middle of the third week, it's hard to keep kids motivated. I know me as a teacher or coach, it's pretty boring and redundant. I remember early in my career, I was like, we're doing flag football, and I'm like sitting in a chair trying not to fall asleep. But it's hard to. Some kids are going to like that, but even a kid that loves basketball after 6 weeks and half the class doesn't care, they're going to kind of not care. So to me, it keeps everything fresh, especially switching it off. Not just for us, but the students. Some students they live for weight room day. That's their favorite day of the week. So it gives them something to look forward to. But then also some kids, they want to get their next color trunks, or they want to test as much as possible. Then some kids really like sport. And one thing I found too with the sports, we're only doing that one day a week, but it seems like that day we do it, the kids really get after it and push themselves. And I see a lot of development and growth just doing it one day a week. So I don't know, for us, that works a lot better, and we found that to be very successful.
So am I right in thinking, correct me if I'm wrong here, so the kids will do the kind of mandatory PE, but then they could opt to do sports on top of that, and that wouldn't take the place of a PE class, for example? That would be an add-on, is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. So we do offer after-school sports. So yeah, it's all after school. So early in the year, we offer volleyball, flag football, and cross country. Then as we get into the winter, we'll have girls basketball, boys basketball, and like wrestling's in there as well. The students can do both though. Then we end the year with track and field. But yeah, it's not a part of PE. For the after school sports, they just have to, have over a 2.0. They can't be failing any of their classes. They got to have good behavior. They can't be messing around in classes. So it's a good way to help keep students accountable, or someone that loves sports but maybe doesn't care much about school. We've actually helped a lot of kids start focusing on school. And that, for me, that was a driver for me too. That's what got me into caring about education, was sports. So to be able to use that as kind of carrot to get kids to care about their education, and found it to be a huge deal.
So obviously, I mean, I know Prescott is kind of heavily influenced by the model that came out of La Sierra High School, which people, if they've watched the Motivation Factor documentary, will be familiar with. How is it different at Prescott? Like, is it literally a copy and paste of the old program from the 1960s in La Sierra, or how have you tweaked it? How is it? What similarities and differences are there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I probably wouldn't know all the answers to that, but so way back in the day when Prescott started, our PE teacher then, founder, Mark Wilson, I guess he saw like a commercial promo for La Sierra High, and he was really excited for it. And we had an awesome superintendent then, named Stan Little. So he was very encouraging. He's like, yeah, go. So Mark went to the school, and he was there, I'm not sure for how long, maybe a few weeks, and just checking out and seeing everything they did. He copied a lot of their warm-ups, so we do a lot of the same warm-ups they used to do. But one thing that is different is La Sierra High is a high school, and Prescott is a junior high school. So, there was typically like 13 to 18-year-olds. We were dealing with 12 to 14-year-olds for the most part. So he had to change the program and gear it towards boys at the time. The girls weren't a part of that, unfortunately. So first 2 years just kind of like tinkering. So he would like time kids and see what the best times, and he kind of tinkered the scores off of that. It's kind of funny though, this year, me and my coworker, Alex Johnson, we were looking at the La Sierra times, and sometimes we have like a higher standard for some of the tests that for junior high kids than the high school. And that's one thing else that's different. I know in the documentary, they talk about La Sierra High, it being a 4-year program too, but like over 90% of their kids got their next color trunks. At Prescott, it's quite a bit the opposite. Honestly, probably we only have about like 20-30% of our population gets their next color trunks. And I'm not sure like how often they played sports, stuff like that, but same thing, they offered sports after school. I know with like talking to Ron Jones and Doug Orchard, who knew a little bit more about La Sierra High. I guess they're tremendous in sports. really a lot of conditioning took care of itself. It's kind of the same with us too. We don't really condition our athletes during sports season very much because we do it during the regular school day. But yeah, I'm not too sure of other differences or anything. Main thing is just, building that team atmosphere and family atmosphere where everyone pushes each other. But it's really about yourself. You're competing against yourself on a regular basis. So, and I know for us, we're known for our trunk program, and which is nice, and our trunks are awesome. But, with only about 20-30% of the students earning those, that leaves 70% out. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's an elitist program. And even since my article lately, I've had quite a few people like, oh, what do you do with the kids that don't try? Do parents complain because their kids don't get the next color trunks? And, we live in this everything should be handed to me world. It's like, no, you guys got to earn everything you got. And one thing we found that's very successful. So students earn stars every time they get a personal record. So for instance, we're running the 400 meter. First time you run that, you get 2 minutes. Second time you run it, even if you beat it by 1 second, you get 1:59. You document that. The kids come in the locker room, we'll double check that. They'll earn a star. They can put on their shirt. They'll also earn a Prescott Pride. So it's kind of like bucks or whatever. Some schools have like a tiger buck or whatever the mascot is. So they can buy like stuff at the student store or whatever. But it just gives that extra intrinsic motivation. And that's what we're all about. We're all about, hey, you're competing against yourself and push yourself on a daily basis and, challenge yourself. But also too, it builds a little camaraderie and competition with the students themselves. But yeah, it's a program about improvement and doing your best. I mean, some of the very best students we've had at Prescott, may have never gotten any points towards their next color trunks. It's all about just pushing themselves. And when they see record of that too, they keep record of it. So then to be able to see how much they improve in a year or 2 years is quite remarkable. We do have an award called like the Most Improved Award. It's an 8th grade award. So kids, they keep record from their 7th grade year all the way through their 8th grade year. And just see the growth they make. It's just insane. I remember one year we had a student that had took 6 minutes off his mile time from the first time as a 7th grader to an 8th grader. And usually we have very similar every year. We've had students lose I remember one student we had, it seemed like he lost close to 100 pounds as a 7th grader to an 8th grader. And just seeing that, giving these kids just a little bit of reward and giving them that extra motivation to push themselves and set goals and just constantly drive and try to get better, it goes a long way.
Yeah, so talk us a bit through, obviously I know you guys have a lot of different kind of tests and results that you monitor, but talk us through a handful of the kind of ones that you would monitor for that trunk, the kind of trunk progression, but also what are some of the things that people are keeping a record of when we're talking about some of these tests? So
yeah, so we do have 20 physical fitness tests, and they keep record of every single one. So every year the kids are given a sheet, or there's 4 sheets of paper, so it has all the tests, and we give them tests that show all the different tests. So they'll get tests for the red trunk, getting your red trunks, your blue trunks, and your gold trunks. So everyone sees that. So I don't know if they want to set goals early in the year or whatever, so they can all see wow, this is how far I got to get to. Because a lot of kids are I'm gonna get my gold colored trunks. It's and that's a great goal to have. But for some kids, it might be unrealistic. Not want to deter them from that by any shape or mean. But I mean, there's been thousands of kids. We've been running this for around 50 years, and we have 89 boys that have gotten their next color trunks. We have 57 girls that have gotten their next color trunks. Gotten their gold trunks. So, that might be a very steep hill to climb or goal to try to get to. So yeah, we keep track, and we also have a master sheet ourselves. So we keep track. So for instance, first time we run out to do a 400 meter, we'll time the kids and get their time. They'll write that down, and they'll put the time. If they get points, they'll put that in their point chart, and then they'll also put their times in the running log. So, and our tests vary. So they go from all the way from a 400 all the way to 3 mile. We have a 50-yard sprint, 200-yard shuttle when they're white or gray trunkers. Then once they become red, blue, gold trunkers, they do a 300-yard shuttle run. Then in terms of upper body, we do push-ups, sit-ups. Then we have a bunch of equipment at Prescott, which is really nice. So we have ladder, which is also known as like monkey bars. So they have to do trips on the ladder. We have like a bar dip station. So we test bar dips. Cable. So it's like this 30-foot long cable that they have to they like hang upside down and do multiple trips on that. Then we have pull-up bars, so they do pull-ups. We also do like a 2-arm hang where they sit there and just hang and like in the down position and pull up for a period of time. And we have a pole climb. So I want to say it's a 20-foot pole. They got to climb up, and they can use their hand, depending on the test, their hands only, or they can use their legs depending on where they're at in their fitness level. Trying to think, did I say it? And then standing long jump, then sit-ups. Then two, for some tests get taken away. So I know when they become blue trunkers and they're going for their golds, we get rid of sit-ups and the 50-yard dash, and we put in a 4 mile. So they got to run up to 4 miles once they're going for their gold trunks. And gosh, I can't think of the other one right now, but it'll come back to me. But also to another test is pegboard. So, and it's crazy. The kids get so excited for pegboard. It's like we get a little annoyed. These kids are always like, "Hey, can I test? Can I test?" So we have pegboards in our locker room. So, and they can climb up the pegboard and stuff. It's awesome to see how excited they get for it, and really how much growth they get on pegboard as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not an easy test either.
No, not. I mean, I'll do it sometimes with them just to kind of show, I do okay. I can get like 6 up, like 2 down or 3 down or something. Then when I fall, they'll get on me and stuff like that. But and just having like that camaraderie too, and showing them like, like we're all not great at everything. So. Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously a year round in terms of academic year, a year round program. It's not one semester or 1 month or 1 term. It's a long-term thing, as you said, multiple years as well, potentially.
Yeah. So here in California, typically school goes from early August all the way till late May. But yeah, it's year round. So when students get here, they all start off with 0 points. But if like you're an 8th grader or you're here the year before, it's not like you have to start back. Yeah, you didn't get your goals, you got to start all the way back. You start off where you left off. So we keep record of that. And we usually check 7th graders before the end of the year, make sure there's no discrepancies going into summer. But then we'll double check that when we come back from early in the year. So, but if say a kid had 58 points towards their next colored trunks, then they'll start off with that same amount of points that next year.
I think it's really interesting because, one of the things that you've already brought up is that the difference in terms of, having a fitness-based curriculum versus a sports-based curriculum. And I guess one of the things we've started touching on is that, that buy-in from the students themselves. But I guess what I'm starting to realize is it potentially the difference of PE being framed as competing against yourself in this sort of a format of fitness, where it's like, okay, can you beat your previous PR? Can you, do a few more push-ups? Can you run a bit quicker? Versus the sport model, which is 9 times out of 10, you're competing against someone else. So do you think that has an influential factor on the motivation of the students? Do you think that's part of the success of the program?
Absolutely. And also too, they get to see their growth. It's not, sometimes like, I remember like I grew up, I'd run a mile and I would totally forget my time. It's not like I was trying to beat it or there was any like incentive to try to beat my previous mile. So I think having that incentive, but also too, it does create like competitive and healthy competitions within the class. And it makes athletes better because sometimes, if you have students that are pushing each other or you have someone running really fast, well, I want to keep up with him, then it's going to help you get a better time. Or on sit-ups and stuff like that. So it's fun. sometimes we'll have like, I remember one day we were doing push-ups, and one of my Gold Trunk boys was doing push-ups, and he did like 80 or whatever. Then I had a girl going for her Gold Trunks, and she made sure she got to 81. She's like, I had to make sure I beat him, because so just having, but it wasn't like in his face or anything like that. It was like a friendly competition. He was like excited and like congratulating her and stuff like that. So yeah, making it about them. It's like, hey, yes, you're competing with your classmates, but you're ultimately competing about yourself. You're trying to be a better version of yourself today compared to last time or yesterday. If you constantly strive for that, and then you're just going to make stronger people in the long run. A great story. So one thing we do at Prescott, we have something called a super mile. So because not all the kids are out there together, we have 6 classes, speed classes going a day. So all the kids don't get to compete against each other. So to make the super mile, you as a boy, you have to run a 6:30 or under. And for girls, you have to run a 7:30 or under. Then there's 4 different divisions. We'll have a race, and it's a huge deal. Like we'll be double lunches. A lot of the teachers will bring their classes out to watch it. Parents will come, and it's the middle of the school day, and we'll be announcing and stuff like that. So we make a cool event out of it. But these kids will, for one, trying to make super mile, they'll like try to ask them run the mile every day. Can I make it? Sometimes we have kids that'll make the super mile, then they'll run the mile, they'll make it that same day. So earlier in the day, they'll come out and they'll run the mile, make super mile, and they'll come out and compete with their classmates to compete against them. Then we have like a 7th grade boys, a 7th grade girls, an 8th grade girls, 8th grade boys division. And almost every single one of those kids that run it, even the kids that ran it earlier that day will beat their best time. Because they have that extra competition. And one year it was early in my career there, we had a school record broken, the mile record, it was held for like almost 30 years. But we had an athlete, his name was Alon. He was like the best runner in the county. He ran usually around a 5:10 miles. It was pretty fast. Then in that class, or that year, we had another Gold Trunker. His name was Axel. He was more of like a short distance runner. So in track, he didn't compete against Alon because he was more doing like the 100, 200, stuff like that. But it was just insane to see these kids push each other. For about 3.5 or 3 3/4 of the mile, Axel had the lead, but these guys were neck and neck. Then at the end, Axel kind of petered off. He kind of ran out of energy, and then Alon just came in and he broke that record. He ended up running a 4:55, and he broke the previous record by 1 second. So, having just friendly competition is a good thing too. In class, we find that to be another motivation. And same thing, when Alon and Axel got done, it's not like Axel was mad or anything. They were hugging each other. And Alon knows he probably would have never broke that record if he didn't have Axel there to push him. So, but building that strong culture and family atmosphere at Prescott, which Chris Lindbergh instilled with us, it's just a really special thing. And you see that not just only in kids helping each other and like pushing the students that maybe aren't as good, but also pushing the elite athletes to be even better.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I guess it reframes competition in a whole different way. Like, typically that competitive element is a zero-sum game, isn't it? It's a you win, I lose situation.
Exactly.
But in this sort of situation, if you are tracking progress of some sort of metric, whether it's a standing broad jump or press ups or whatever, yeah, you won and I lost that, interpersonal competition, but I actually still won because I added 5 press ups, or so it's not that zero-sum game. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on, does that element breed a bit more confidence in people to have a competition, do you think? Because they know, well, actually it's not a you and I lose scenario. I could still improve myself, like you're saying, with almost having that sparring partner or someone who's going to push me that bit more.
Yeah, it's almost, kind of like that too, with like a sparring partner or whatever. It's like you have that other person who's trying to do their best. And so having that friendly competition, trying to push each other, for a few years ago, and one thing I left out in the article I should have probably talked about was that same year we had 8 colored Gold Trunkers. We also had 16 records broken. And one of them was the girls' cable record. And it was like one day a girl would break it, the next day another girl would break it, and the next day another girl would break it. So there was just like friendly competition, but same thing. They'd be there to cheer each other on, or like, that's awesome. Like, hey, I'm going to break that record tomorrow. And so just having them to push each other. And, but yeah, everybody wins that way, you know, because yeah, maybe your record was broken, but you just did more trips on the cable than anybody. So just having that, you're getting better, you're getting stronger, not just physically, but mentally as well.
Yeah, no, it seems like a really interesting program. I mean, there's so many things that are just so different from, what we experience here in the UK, just from the frequency of what you guys are doing in terms of 4 days a week, the way the curriculum's framed, and that personal development bit around just being better than yourself last month or last year. That's huge. And I think I can really see the benefits of that, working with kids who are maybe not as confident. And as you said, okay, maybe they're never going to get to the next level of trunks, but you might get a star, or you might break your personal record. And, I think the problem we have with a lot of PE curriculums is it reinforces to the guys who are already good that you're good. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't do a whole lot of confidence for the people at the other end of the spectrum who don't have the competence or competence to get involved in a game of basketball or a game of soccer or whatever it is. So, I'm just going to sit here on the sideline because this is way safer for me. I don't have to expose my lack of ability. And, there's I've not got anything to win by getting involved in this game because I'm going to look silly.
Yeah, exactly. Then too, I mean, yeah, if you're doing basketball and someone's really good and someone's really low, and it's just like, yeah, why would I try? We find that too, that carries over when we're playing sports. If it's even our competitive teams or in class, it's really they're there and they're trying to help each other and push each other as well in that aspect. Again, building that family atmosphere, we tolerate zero, like making fun of each other or anything like that. That's one thing we will not deal with or handle very well. So it's like, it's always like, hey, let's try to make each other better. And that will carry over in sports. When we do this game called like hot shot, where you're playing basketball, you're shooting and you're by yourself, we strongly encourage the kids, hey, cheer each other on, because some people, aren't good at basketball, and it's really hard for them to go in front of the class and shoot in front of them, but they'll be getting cheered on. And all of a sudden, sometimes those kids make it to like our hot shot finals or whatever, because maybe they haven't played a lot of basketball, but having people encourage them actually helps them. And, a student that stands out to me with that, we had a gold trunker, her name is Shannon, super hard worker, really great at fitness. But I remember basketball, she wasn't good at it. And she would go out there and she would be like one of the first kids to go out there. She'd do hot shot and she'd score 0 points, but she would leave with a smile on her face because she gave it her all. And she knew she wasn't great at it, but she went out there and tried. She didn't care. And like seeing that and the rest of the kids seeing that is very contagious, because it's like, she's not embarrassed. Yeah, she didn't do well, but the fact that she went out there and tried and gave it her all, that's all we ask for. And really, if you go through life, with a positive attitude and you work hard and whatever you're doing, you bring others along the ride with you, you're going to be a successful person, and you're going to be just a great, outstanding person for really our society, rather than like, oh, I didn't do well. Well, I need this. I deserve this, and trying to break that mentality from people. It's like, just do, on a daily basis, and this is a thing we stress from the very beginning of the year, is to have a positive attitude and a great work ethic, bring others along with the ride for you. And, you're going to have a successful life, whatever happens.
So obviously you've got your trunk system, and you've got your the points of personal progression and the stars, the records and stuff like that. Does that pretty much mean that you're catering for everyone in some capacity, or is there still some kids that don't engage at all? How do you, is there, what is that like now?
Yeah, so and every year it happens every year, So in terms of getting everyone involved, early in the year, you might have kids that are never really physically active, don't really care about school, stuff like that. So they just, and like one thing we have, like when you leave the locker room, or really when we go place to place, you jog. So it's not like we never walk out or anything like that. So, we'll have like 90% of the kids, they're doing the best they can. Then we'll have the kids that walk out and whatever, I don't care. But then as time goes on, as more and more kids buy in, those kids stick out like a sore thumb. So it's kind of like a positive reinforcer with everyone else doing what they're supposed to be doing for them not to stand out. So they might not jog out as hard as they can. They might pretend they're giving their all, but at least, they're showing some effort there. But also too, we have the kids that don't buy in. We have to constantly struggle with. Our vice principal, Patrick Rodden, does a phenomenal job working those kids, not just those kids, because those kids too, if they're struggling with us, a lot of times they're struggling in other classes and stuff. So he does a great job at bringing those kids in. We'll bring those kids to our locker room. We'll just have human conversations and just talk about stuff and just being really supportive. We have like a program called Check In, Check Out. And a lot of times he'll work with us PE teachers with the kids. So the kids will kind of meet with us in the morning. We'll talk to them and just ask them stuff. It's not school related, like, hey, how's your day going? What'd you do last night? That type of thing. So building like a positive relationship with them. And a lot of times now they'll start doing better in their, not just in PE, but the rest of their classes. Then also too, sometimes kids don't buy in right away, and that's okay. And really the big thing is to just always try to find positives in what they're doing. So some kids might not try on track, but all of a sudden on our weight room days, they're pushing themselves. So it's like, let them know that, hey, congratulations, good job on weight room today. Let's carry this on to basketball tomorrow. Let's carry this on to track. So finding just those little victories and trying to build on it. The big thing that happens at Prescott too, sometimes we'll have a student who didn't really push themselves as a 7th grader, but all of a sudden as an 8th grader, they just kick it into a new gear. They have a different mindset. A lot of the times those students actually become leaders. So they'll be like class assistants, like leading warm-ups and stuff and leading by example. So that's a great thing to see. And main thing is just never giving up on those kids. We do have a few that never buy in. It's very, very few. And I feel with our vice principal, that number has shrunk year by year since he's been there.
So are there any resources that you would recommend to people who are a bit more interested in this? Like, obviously, I know you wrote a good article for Strong First, which kind of spoke a little bit about some of the things that you're doing. Is there any other things you would point people towards?
So, yeah, and one thing, so we also use another program, Strong, called Original Strength. So in that advisory class where I'm doing strong endurance, it's actually my coworkers, Alex Johnson and Courtney Wallace, work with Original Strength. I'm certified in Original Strength. I do it like early in the year, then I'll venture off to strong endurance, but they do a phenomenal job, especially Alex. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's actually in the process of like working more and trying to partner more with them with the Original Strength. And if people don't know what Original Strength is, it's their mindset is, it's called press and reset. And it's really cool because basically it's teaching you or reteaching you basic movements that we have hardwired in our brain as babies. And I've seen it firsthand. I have a 1.5-year-old. So knowing the curriculum with Original Strength and watching my daughter develop is like, yeah, that's exactly right. Before she rolls, she's going to turn her head to get her body over and stuff of that nature. So, and what we found is by redoing those movements, you're building up your vestibular system, which helps with balance and coordination, gait pattern, and we're making stronger, better athletes. One of the students I talked about in the article is Javier, who had this huge growth. He was actually in Original Strength with Mr. Johnson for about half the year. So a lot of that growth actually happened with the Original Strength. And he's the type of kid where he worked his butt off every day, but he didn't have, he couldn't do a jumping jack count and move at the same time. He went from that, not being able to do a push-up, all this, to becoming a pretty mobile and pretty good athlete. I mean, he went from 0 push-ups to 30 in about a 2-month span. And a lot of it was building that up and with Original Strength. So Original Strength's been a phenomenal program for us. Another good resource is the Lean Berets by Ron Jones. So if you're trying to look for more of like a historical or more examples of like the classical model of PE, of physical education, that's a great resource. There's a lot of great resources on that website. We talked about motivation factor. If we had teachers, administrators out there have not seen the motivation factor, I strongly recommend watching those motivation factors. That was a phenomenal documentary. They did a great job with that.
So what's next for you? What have you got, any projects coming up in the near future, or in the next 12 months? Anything on the horizon?
Yeah, so I mentioned before, my coworker Alex Johnson, he's actually building like a manual for elementary PE, and because we find like if we're going to try to run this program, like try to go into a junior high and build it, would probably be really, really hard. So he's starting to develop like an elementary program, and to use that. So maybe you can build an elementary program at a school and build those students up. Then once you get that foundation and students that went through it, now we already have the junior high model. We have the La Sierra model that's available. So now you can kind of use those building blocks to get you there. And maybe a whole district can now start from that elementary model and work themselves up to doing what we're doing, what La Sierra was doing. So I'm kind of helping guide him in that venture. But also too, I've been contacted since the article, by several schools and people all over the world. I'd love to have an opportunity to consult with people. Because, you can listen to this interview, or you can talk to me on the phone for like an hour. But for me, it took me like 3 years to totally understand everything about this program. So if I can go and help other schools that are trying to get it going, talk to administrators, anything, I would love the opportunity to do that. But first and foremost, this with the pandemic, basically our PE program's been shut down since that's happened. We're doing like Zoom PE. We'll start in person here on March 15th, but that's still going to be like a hybrid model. So basically trying to get this program back and running. We've just seen in this short time, students not having it, even students that did really, really good with us last year, losing that physical education and that structure has really hurt them, and they've taken kind of like a downturn. So the first and foremost is bringing this back at Prescott and bringing the strong program going. I think our area needs it more than ever. I think people now too are seeing like, hey, fitness is extremely important. Vast majority of the people that got really, really sick or passed away with the pandemic were obese or we're not healthy. So let's push more of this fitness-based PE. Let's make a stronger emphasis on health. So if something like this happens again, it won't be as devastating.
Fantastic. So lastly, where can people follow you if they wanted to check you out? I know you've got some bits and bobs on social media. I mean, obviously I'll link the article that you wrote so people can get a bit more. Where can they track you down if they want to do that?
So I do have an Instagram. It's Coach Av at 34. Honestly, most of it's pictures of my daughter and stuff like that. It's more of a personal, but I do have some coaching stuff and stuff like that. One of our PE teachers, Tammy Wilkinson, she runs Prescott Pride on Instagram. So a lot of that is like kids that earn their next color trunks or whatever. But there's other things that go on. It's been kind of dead, but if people want to kind of check that out, I strongly recommend that. Then you can always email me. It's javelar@stanunion.k12.ca.us. That's through our school district. Or if you don't remember all that, you can just go to the Stanislaus Union webpage, or if you type in Prescott PE or Prescott, you'll probably find my email somewhere.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. It's been really cool to hear what you guys are doing, and I think it's something that should hopefully give a lot of people a lot of things to think about, and maybe give them a little thread to go and check out a bit more about what you're doing, and maybe think about maybe how they might change their practice or create a bit more of a movement into integration or fitness-based models. So thanks a lot for your time. It's been really, I've enjoyed it, and I know a lot of people will find it really useful. Thank
you very much. Yeah, we'd love to see this program grow like a wildfire and get this going across the world, make everybody, let's get rid of this whole, like, I deserve this, I deserve that. Let's teach kids from an early age to work for everything they want and desire in life. And I think we'll have a much stronger society and much healthier society as well.